awaken your spirit, chosen ones. Be careful what you say out loud, not because it's powerful, but because it's revealing. Most people think words are harmless, just noise, just talk. But here's a fact that messes with that idea. Studies in cognitive psychology show that once a thought is spoken, the brain treats it as a commitment, not a suggestion. Your attention shifts, your choices narrow, and your behavior starts quietly lining up behind that sentence, even when you swear you didn't mean it that seriously. That's how things begin moving before you consciously decide to move at all. That's why this story never starts with action. It starts with a sentence said too early, too casually, maybe even half joking. A sentence you thought would evaporate the moment it left your mouth. But instead of disappearing, it stayed. It sat there. It listened. And while you went on with your day, life started rearranging furniture in the background. There's something almost embarrassing about realizing this. You didn't plan a breakthrough. You didn't map out a transformation. You just spoke. And somehow the world took notes. Not because the universe is magical or dramatic, but because your mind hates loose ends. Once you said it, your brain went to work trying to prove you right. No ceremony, no warning, just quiet alignment. And here's the slightly funny part. You're only shocked now because you forgot what you said. Life didn't forget. Your habits didn't forget. Your decisions didn't forget. They heard you loud and clear and assumed you were serious. So now things are unfolding. Doors are opening. Consequences are stacking up, and you're standing there like, wait, I was just talking. This isn't about manifesting. It's about exposure. You spoke too soon, yes, but what's coming true was already inside you. The words didn't create it. They gave it permission. Number 1, you didn't predict the future. You exposed your pattern. What you said wasn't a glimpse into tomorrow. It was a leak from today. People think prediction is about seeing ahead, but most of the time it's just pattern recognition in disguise. You spoke what you were already doing on autopilot. Your habits, preferences, tolerances, and decisions had been repeating themselves quietly for a long time. The sentence just brought them to the surface. Humans are far more consistent than they like to admit. We eat the same things, react the same way under pressure, avoid the same discomforts, chase the same rewards. Over time, those repetitions form a pattern so stable that when you speak from it, it sounds like foresight. In reality, it's exposure. You weren't guessing. You were reporting. That's why it feels eerie when it comes true. The mind loves to pretend it's spontaneous, flexible, unpredictable, but your behavior keeps receipts. When you said those words, you accidentally summarized yourself, your tolerance for risk, your patience level, how long you endure things before you change them, how you respond when opportunities show up. All of that was already visible in how you lived. The uncomfortable part is realizing that the future didn't surprise you. You surprised yourself by finally hearing yourself clearly. The words didn't summon anything new. They just made obvious what had been loading in the background. That's why the result feels inevitable in hindsight. Once you see the pattern, the outcome stops looking magical and starts looking logical. This is also why people get nervous when someone speaks plainly about where they're headed, not because it's bold, but because it's honest. Honesty removes plausible deniability. You can't claim randomness anymore when your behavior has been narrating the same story for years. So when things start unfolding and lining up with what you said, it's not proof of destiny. It's proof of consistency. You didn't predict the future. You read yourself out loud, and reality simply followed the script you'd been rehearsing all along. Number 2, words lock the mind into accountability. The moment you say something out loud, it stops being flexible. Inside your head, thoughts can change, contradict each other, or disappear without consequences. Spoken words don't get that freedom. Once they leave your mouth, they turn into a reference point. Your mind treats them like a record of who you are and what you stand for, even if you said them casually or without a plan. This is why people often feel an invisible pressure after speaking. Nothing dramatic happens on the outside, but something tightens on the inside. Your brain doesn't like inconsistency. When your actions drift away from what you said, it creates mental friction. Not guilt in a dramatic sense, just a constant low-level discomfort that pushes you to either follow through or mentally rewrite who you think you are. What makes this powerful is that accountability doesn't need an audience. Even if no one remembers what you said, your mind does. It keeps score quietly. You start making small decisions that lean toward matching your words. You stay a little later. You try a little harder. You tolerate less nonsense. Not because you're trying to prove anything to others, but because your brain wants internal alignment. That's why people joke about speaking things into existence without realizing what's actually happening. The words don't move the world directly. They reorganize you. They narrow your options. Certain excuses stop feeling believable. Certain exits stop looking comfortable. You might not notice it day by day, but over time the direction becomes obvious. There's also a reason some people avoid saying things out loud. Silence preserves escape routes. As long as it's unsaid, it can still be undone. Speaking closes doors. It forces definition. It draws a line between who you were before the sentence and who you have to become after it. So, when what you said starts showing up in real life, it's not magic or coincidence. It's accountability, doing its quiet work. Your words didn't trap you. They clarified you. And once clarity sets in, behavior has a way of falling in line whether you consciously plan it or not. Number 3, you underestimated momentum. Momentum is one of those invisible forces that quietly reshapes everything, and most people never notice it until it's too late. You think progress is linear, like a staircase you climb step by step. In reality, it's exponential. Small actions, small decisions, even small commitments start stacking in ways your brain doesn't immediately register. By the time the result smacks you in the face, it feels sudden, shocking, and unearned. But it's not. It's the natural consequence of motion that started long before you realized it was moving. When you spoke too soon, you didn't create momentum. You revealed it. Your words acted like a flare, highlighting a current that had already begun flowing. What felt like a casual remark was actually the ignition of a chain reaction. Every choice you made before that moment, every habit, every pattern of thought, had quietly aligned, preparing the ground for what you just announced. Momentum doesn't care about timing or convenience. It simply follows direction, and once it's moving, it's almost impossible to stop. The crazy part is that momentum works whether you fully intend it or not. Once your attention and energy start leaning towards something, even half-consciously, your actions start to multiply. Opportunities you would have ignored suddenly look relevant. Obstacles that used to scare you feel like minor inconveniences. Even mistakes become steps forward, because forward motion has its own gravitational pull. What you underestimated wasn't just the speed. It was the inevitability that comes when energy and alignment meet. This is why it feels like things come out of nowhere after you speak. They don't. They've been building quietly, invisibly, while you were distracted by doubt, overthinking, or waiting for the right moment. Speaking aloud simply marks the moment where momentum becomes undeniable. Once momentum is awake, there's no returning to the old pace. It accelerates quietly, persistently, and sometimes ruthlessly. You thought you were early or maybe off guard, but in reality, momentum doesn't wait. It rewards consistency and punishes hesitation. And now that it's rolling, it's going to keep moving, whether you fully control it or not. Number 4. You revealed intent before resistance showed up. Saying something out loud isn't just a statement, it's a signal. The moment your words escape your mouth, they broadcast intent, and intent has a way of attracting resistance, whether you notice it or not. Resistance doesn't need a reason to exist, it only needs to detect commitment. By speaking, you unknowingly put your intentions on the radar, and the world, full of systems, people, and circumstances, reacts immediately, even before you feel the pushback. Most people try to prepare themselves before making a move, thinking that planning shields them from friction. But friction is inevitable. Life has a natural resistance to change, to disruption, and to anything that forces it out of routine. By declaring what you were going to do before it was fully formed, you exposed yourself to that friction early. And while it might feel uncomfortable, that exposure is actually proof that you're serious. It's proof that your energy is aligning, even if the obstacles haven't appeared yet. Intent, once revealed, works like a magnet. It draws both opportunity and challenge. The people who support you start noticing patterns they may have ignored. The systems you navigate begin adjusting, often subtly, in response to the energy you're projecting. And the obstacles that normally take months or years to materialize sometimes appear immediately. Because your declaration is a spotlight, and friction tends to show up wherever light falls. What makes this so powerful is that you don't control when resistance arrives, only how you respond. By revealing intent too soon, you get an early glimpse of the forces that will test you. That's terrifying, yes, but it's also invaluable. It forces you to clarify your position, strengthen your approach, and confirm whether your energy matches your words. Speaking before resistance appears isn't a mistake. It's an acceleration of reality. The world didn't suddenly become harder, it simply adjusted to the clarity of your intent. And the sooner you face that resistance, the sooner you understand whether what you said was just words, or whether it was a true reflection of what you were capable of becoming. Number 5. Your mouth moved faster than your fear. Fear is quiet, but powerful. It creeps in before action, whispers hesitation, and convinces you that waiting is safer than moving. Most people let it dictate when they speak and when they act. But in your case, the words slipped out before fear could catch them. That small, seemingly careless moment became a revelation of courage you didn't even know you had. Speaking before fear locks in isn't just bold, it's revealing. It exposes the raw truth of who you are beneath the doubts, the what-ifs, and the internal resistance that normally keeps people silent. When your mouth moves faster than fear, the world reacts differently. You start to notice patterns and opportunities that usually hide behind hesitation. The words themselves become a signal to your own brain, telling it that action is inevitable. Suddenly, you can't retreat quietly anymore. Your nervous system has been triggered into alignment with what you said, and your decisions start following the sentence as if it's a command, rather than a suggestion. This is why it feels both shocking and exhilarating when what you said starts coming true. It's not coincidence, and it's not luck. Fear would normally slow the chain reaction, giving you time to second-guess, backpedal, or shrink from commitment. By speaking first, you removed that delay. Your words acted like a spark, igniting momentum that had been quietly simmering beneath the surface. There's also something strangely liberating about this kind of exposure. You realize that fear was never the gatekeeper you imagined it to be. It's simply a signpost, highlighting where courage is required. By talking before fear caught up, you forced your reality to respond to the truth of your intent. The world aligned not because you were fearless, but because you acted faster than fear could dictate terms. In the end, this isn't about reckless bravado. It's about the subtle power of moving first, of letting your energy, your words, and your intent claim the space that fear normally occupies. The sentence was said. Fear is catching up now, and life has no choice but to adjust. Number 6. You planted a flag, not a wish. There's a huge difference between saying something casually and planting a flag. A wish floats in the air, fragile and optional, easy to ignore and easy to forget. A flag, on the other hand, stakes a claim. When you spoke, you didn't whisper hope. You drew a line. You marked territory in your own reality, even if you weren't fully aware of it. That's why what you said starts turning into something tangible. The world doesn't respond to whispers, but it reacts to claims. Planting a flag is dangerous in the best way. It forces alignment, first internally, then externally. Your brain notices it immediately because it hates inconsistency. Suddenly the choices you make, the actions you take, the people you engage with, all of it starts bending toward the position you declared. Momentum begins building quietly in the background. You didn't realize it, but the flag you planted is a signal. You are committed, whether or not you feel fully ready. Unlike a wish, a flag carries accountability. It doesn't let you drift back into indecision. It's a reminder that your words matter, and that the energy you project has consequences. The universe doesn't care about your hesitation. It only sees the claim. That's why opportunities start lining up in strange ways, why doors appear you didn't expect, and why friction shows up to test whether the flag is truly yours. There's also something subtly powerful in the psychology of claiming before achieving. When you plant a flag, you are telling yourself and the world that you are already engaged with the result. It's no longer theoretical. Your energy, attention, and focus quietly begin confirming the words you said, even if it takes weeks or months to fully materialize. This is why what you spoke feels like it came true faster than expected. It's not magic, luck, or prophecy. It's the invisible mechanics of commitment, alignment, and accountability. You didn't just express a desire, you marked a boundary, claimed a path, and set a direction. And now, whether you like it or not, life is responding to the claim. Number 7. Reality didn't change. Alignment did. When what you said starts showing up in real life, it feels like the world suddenly shifted. But the truth is, reality hasn't rewritten itself. Nothing about the circumstances, the opportunities, or the people around you has fundamentally changed overnight. What changed is you. Your attention, your focus, your energy, all of it quietly realigned with the statement you made. That alignment is what makes it seem like the impossible is happening, when really it's just the natural outcome of clarity meeting action. Speaking out loud isn't magic. It's like turning on a compass inside your own mind. Before the words left your mouth, your direction might have been vague, scattered, or even contradictory. Once you articulated it, the brain starts noticing details it ignored before. Decisions that were difficult become obvious. Opportunities that were invisible suddenly stand out. Obstacles still exist, but they look different because your perception has shifted. Alignment doesn't remove challenges, it sharpens your ability to move through them. The power of alignment is subtle but relentless. It's in the tiny choices you make every day without thinking, staying late on a project, prioritizing one task over another, talking to a person you'd normally avoid. All of it starts syncing with the sentence you spoke. You don't feel like you're forcing it. You just find yourself moving in the same direction, almost effortlessly. That's why your statement comes true faster than expected. Your behavior has already been coordinating behind the scenes. This is also why saying it matters more than thinking it. Thoughts are soft, temporary, and easy to ignore. Words create accountability and focus, which push alignment into motion. Your life doesn't bend to words because the universe conspires. It bends because you do, quietly and almost invisibly. So when it seems like everything is happening at once, remember this: reality didn't change. You did. Your alignment, your energy, and your attention reorganized themselves around the truth you just spoke. The world merely reflected what you had already committed to being. Number 8. You exposed a belief you already lived by. Every word you speak carries the weight of your unspoken beliefs. When you said it too soon, it wasn't some random guess or a lucky prediction. It was a window into the reality you were already operating in. Deep down, before the words even reached your mouth, your mind had been rehearsing this outcome for months, maybe years. Your habits, your choices, your attention, and even the way you unconsciously measure risk were all quietly pointing in the same direction. Speaking aloud simply made the invisible visible. Beliefs aren't abstract ideas floating in your head. They are engines that power every small decision you make, whether you notice them or not. They dictate what feels possible, what feels inevitable, and what feels like a waste of energy. When your words emerged, they revealed the core assumptions that had been quietly shaping your life. That's why what you said started to manifest so quickly. It wasn't magic, it was confirmation. You were already living in alignment with the statement, and now the world had a clear signal to match. The shocking part is that most people never see their own beliefs clearly. They think they act rationally, as if decisions are made fresh each day. But beneath the surface, there's a steady current running in one direction, shaping reactions, opportunities, and results. Speaking too soon just puts that current on display. It's like drawing a map of your internal logic and giving it to the universe to follow. There's also a strange honesty in this exposure. You can't claim luck, coincidence, or external circumstances when your own behavior has been narrating the same story all along. The words were a confession more than a prediction, a confession that you already believed in this path enough to unconsciously live it. So when things begin to align, it isn't the world catching up to you, it's you finally catching up to yourself. The statement didn't create the belief, it revealed it. And once it's revealed, life has no choice but to mirror what you were already practicing internally. Number 9. You triggered confirmation through action, not luck. What feels like luck is rarely random. When your words start coming true, it's tempting to chalk it up to chance, coincidence, or timing. The truth is far more grounded. You triggered confirmation through action. Saying it out loud didn't summon some cosmic favor. It activated the part of yourself that was already working quietly toward the same outcome, the part that notices opportunities, takes small steps, and makes consistent choices without fanfare. Your statement became the lens through which your actions and the world converged. Every decision you've made, even the tiny unnoticed ones, starts to accumulate quietly. Actions that seemed disconnected suddenly begin forming a pattern. By speaking first, you illuminated that pattern for yourself and everyone around you. Doors didn't open magically. They were already accessible, but your statement acted as a magnet, drawing attention to them. You weren't lucky, you were aligned, focused, and visible enough that the consequences of your prior work became unavoidable. Confirmation through action works quietly and relentlessly. It doesn't make headlines. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare. But the brain notices alignment, and behavior follows. Once your words exist publicly, your internal systems tighten, filtering opportunities, prioritizing what matters, and nudging you toward consistency. The statement becomes a reference point that subtly influences every move you make afterward. That's why, when results appear, they feel like they came out of nowhere. They didn't. They were the natural conclusion of an ongoing chain reaction you triggered by speaking first. This process is also brutally honest. There's no hiding behind excuses or attributing success to luck once your actions are visible and measurable. The confirmation doesn't reward noise or wishful thinking. It rewards movement that has been consistent, intentional, and persistent all along. Your words didn't make it happen. They forced reality to reflect the trajectory you had already created. So when what you said starts manifesting, it's not magic, fate, or fortune. It's the undeniable result of action meeting attention. You didn't need luck, you needed alignment. And that alignment was quietly working long before your words gave it permission to be noticed. Number 10. You spoke from instinct, not strategy. Most people assume that success and accuracy come from careful planning, spreadsheets, and endless overthinking. But in reality, instinct often knows the answer long before logic catches up. When you spoke too soon, it wasn't a calculated move. It was instinct taking the lead. Your subconscious recognized patterns, assessed risks, and evaluated potential outcomes without you consciously realizing it. The sentence that slipped out wasn't random chatter. It was a direct reflection of your internal wiring, honed by experience, observation, and the countless small decisions you've made over time. Instinct works quietly, without the noise of doubt or hesitation. That's why it can feel shocking when your words start turning into reality. Logic would have forced you to wait, to weigh options, to seek validation. Instinct, however, bypasses all of that. It moves first, sharp, decisive, and surprisingly accurate. By speaking before you fully thought it through, you allowed instinct to reveal itself, and the results followed like a shadow. There's something deeply powerful about acting before fear and strategy intervene. Instinct doesn't get paralyzed by what could go wrong. It acts on what is already available. It's a combination of knowledge, pattern recognition, and gut feeling that your conscious mind can rarely articulate. And when the world responds to what you've said, it's not because of luck. It's because instinct is usually right, even when strategy isn't ready to admit it. The irony is that most people distrust instinct because it feels impulsive. They fear speaking too soon, moving too quickly, or committing without a safety net. But instinct doesn't fail quietly. It aligns with what you are already capable of producing. Speaking from it exposes your true capacity and accelerates outcomes. So when your words start manifesting, recognize this. It wasn't a lucky guess or a random statement. It was the culmination of your internal processes acting faster than hesitation, overthinking, or strategy could interfere. You spoke instinctively, and instinct, when trusted, has a way of quietly proving itself correct. Number 11. You underestimated your own follow-through. Most people talk big, but act small. They say things they hope will happen, and then wait for the world to catch up, never realizing that words are only as powerful as the follow-through behind them. In your case, what you said out loud started to manifest not because of luck, timing, or magic, but because your actions, quiet, consistent, and persistent, were already aligned with it. You underestimated just how much you were capable of actually doing. Follow-through is invisible until it becomes undeniable. Every small choice you made before speaking, every extra hour, every overlooked detail, every minor decision to stick with what matters, was quietly stacking up. When the words left your mouth, it wasn't a promise. It was a revelation of a pattern that had already been in motion. Your brain, your habits, and your attention had already committed to the outcome. You just didn't realize the force you were unleashing. This is why so many people fail to recognize their own power. They underestimate themselves because they only see the public, obvious actions, and ignore the countless unseen steps that accumulate over time. Your follow-through doesn't need applause, acknowledgement, or immediate results to be effective. It works quietly, relentlessly, and with precision, aligning circumstances and opportunities to match the energy you've already invested. The remarkable part of underestimating your follow-through is that it works silently, but it feels explosive when results appear. Suddenly, what you said seems prophetic or impossible, when in reality, it's simply the natural consequence of consistent, intentional effort. You weren't speaking into thin air. You were announcing something your actions had already been creating. The lesson here is clear. Words without follow-through are just noise. But when your follow-through exceeds your own expectations, even casual statements begin to feel like reality bending. You didn't just say it too soon. You acted far enough ahead that reality had no choice but to catch up. And that's the hidden power you often underestimate. Your own ability to follow through, silently reshaping the world around you while everyone else is still waiting for proof. Number 12. You cross the point of no return without noticing. Some sentences, some declarations, carry weight far beyond the moment they're spoken. The instant you said it, something irreversible happened. You didn't plan it, and you probably didn't even realize it. But words like that aren't just noise. They are commitments that quietly reshape the path ahead. Before the sentence, you might have had options, detours, and excuses. After it, those options subtly evaporated. You stepped over a line, and the world began rearranging itself around your statement. The point of no return isn't dramatic. There's no siren or flashing light. It's silent, almost invisible, and that's why it hits hardest. You continue with your day, thinking nothing has changed, when in reality, your energy, your habits, and your focus have all started bending toward what you said. That sentence became a marker in time, a point where your potential future narrowed into a single trajectory. Retreat isn't impossible, but it becomes increasingly difficult the longer alignment continues. Crossing that point also exposes your true capacity. Once the words are out, your brain recognizes that backtracking would create dissonance between what you said and what you do. That dissonance is uncomfortable enough to push action forward, sometimes faster than you expect. It forces consistency, focus, and accountability in ways that quiet thinking never could. The scary part is that it feels casual at first. A word dropped, a phrase spoken, maybe even with a hint of doubt or humor. And suddenly your life is responding as if it had been waiting for that moment all along. You didn't consciously plan to cross a threshold, but thresholds exist everywhere in life, and speaking boldly often propels you through them before fear or hesitation can react. This is why the aftermath feels surreal. It's not fate, luck, or prophecy. It's commitment, manifesting quietly but relentlessly. Once you cross the point of no return, reality doesn't bend backwards. It flows forward, reflecting the sentence you spoke. And whether you intended it or not, that moment now defines what comes next, leaving you with no choice but to align with the trajectory you've unleashed. Number 13. You didn't speak too soon. You heard yourself too late. The irony of speaking too soon is that the timing wasn't wrong. The words left your mouth at exactly the moment your mind had unconsciously decided they needed to. The shock isn't in the statement itself, but in your delayed recognition of its significance. You weren't ahead of yourself. You were behind your own awareness. Your subconscious had already lined up the pieces, and your mouth simply delivered the message before your conscious mind caught up. Every person has an internal rhythm that quietly directs decisions, choices, and outcomes long before the thinking brain fully realizes it. When your statement slipped out, it was a reflection of that rhythm, a projection of intentions you hadn't fully acknowledged. Your life had already been moving in the direction implied by your words. You just hadn't admitted it to yourself yet. Speaking was the final step in making the internal external, in forcing recognition of what your actions, habits, and patterns had been silently working toward. This is why it feels disorienting. You expect words to be the start of something, a conscious effort to claim a path. But in this case, words were more like a mirror, showing you what had already been forming under the surface. You didn't cause the shift with speech. Speech revealed the shift that had already begun. Life started to align not because of luck or magic, but because your own energy, focus, and habits were already in motion toward the outcome. There's also a strange power in this delayed realization. Recognizing that you were already on course gives you confidence that isn't dependent on external validation. You weren't bluffing, hoping, or forcing anything. You were acknowledging a trajectory that had quietly been moving without fanfare. So, when it all starts coming true, it isn't because you spoke too soon. It's because your awareness lagged behind the truth of your own alignment. The universe didn't rush forward to catch your words. Your words finally caught up to the direction your life had already been moving in, silently, inevitably, and unmistakably. Number 14. Now you're forced to become consistent with what you said. Once words leave your mouth, they have a way of holding you accountable, whether you like it or not. You're no longer in a space where you can casually drift, make excuses, or quietly hope for the best. What you said demands alignment. Your mind, your habits, and even the subtle choices you make every day begin nudging you toward consistency. It's a silent pressure, but it's relentless and it's unavoidable. You're forced to live in a way that matches your own statement, and that pressure shapes reality faster than planning or motivation ever could. Consistency doesn't come from shouting declarations or making big gestures. It comes from the small, often unnoticed decisions that happen after the words are spoken. Every time you follow through, even slightly, the energy behind your statement grows stronger. Every time you hesitate or slack, your brain registers dissonance, an internal tension that pushes you back into alignment. Over time, those tiny repeated actions accumulate into undeniable momentum, making what once seemed bold or impossible feel natural and inevitable. This is where the power and pressure intersect. You aren't just reacting to external circumstances, you're responding to the invisible contract you made with yourself the moment you spoke. Life doesn't need to remind you what you said. Your own habits, your own attention, and your own energy do that quietly, insistently, every day. Consistency becomes less about discipline and more about honoring the reality you've already declared. The surprising part is how this changes perception. Others notice it too. People see that your words aren't just noise, they're a reflection of action and reliability. What started as a casual statement becomes a benchmark of identity, a point of reference that shapes how you are treated, how opportunities come your way, and even how obstacles respond to you. In the end, speaking out loud isn't just about being heard. It's about creating a force that aligns every choice, every action, and every moment of attention toward a single trajectory. Once you say it, you can't drift. You're forced to become consistent. And that consistency, quiet but unstoppable, is what transforms words into reality. Conclusion. Every word you speak carries more weight than you realize. What feels like a casual sentence, a half-joke, or an offhand remark isn't just noise. It's a reflection of your patterns, your beliefs, and your internal alignment. Speaking too soon doesn't create reality. It exposes it. It reveals what you already live by, triggers accountability, and forces your energy, attention, and actions to follow suit. Momentum builds quietly, instinct takes the lead, and consistency becomes unavoidable. What seems sudden or surprising isn't luck or fate. It's the inevitable result of alignment, follow-through, and the unseen habits you've been cultivating all along. By the time your words begin manifesting, the world is simply mirroring what was already true inside of you. Every action, every small decision, every subtle choice starts confirming the sentence you spoke. Fear, hesitation, and doubt arrive too late. The alignment of your energy has already moved the pieces. And once that happens, retreat isn't easy. You're forced to become the person who matches the words you declared. That's the quiet, relentless power of speaking too soon. It's uncomfortable, exhilarating, and unstoppable because the universe doesn't create it. You do silently through the accumulation of every choice you've already made. So, the next time you find yourself speaking boldly, remember, you're not gambling with chance. You're revealing yourself. You're planting a flag, aligning momentum, and triggering a chain reaction that will push reality to catch up with your intent. The sentence wasn't just said. It became a compass, a commitment, and a force that will shape everything that follows. If this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more insights that uncover hidden truths about life, action, and human behavior. Like, comment, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear the power that lies in their own words. Your next statement could be the one that changes everything. Stay awakened, chosen ones.